The Business Bully podcast is being brought to you by Audible. With over 180,000 audiobooks to download, you can get everything you could ever possibly want to know about any damn thing. Check them out right now, audibletrial.com/bully. Now it's bully time, people. Let's get this show started.
He's been an award-winning media personality and producer. As a speaker, he's empowered over 1 million people from the stage. Now, one of the leading brand experts and business coaches in the U.S. is bringing his unique brand of straight talk to the world of on-demand audio. It's the Business Bully Podcast. Now, here's the business bully himself, David Anderson.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, what's up? Welcome to the Business Bully Podcast. I am David Anderson. And no, I know. Normally I have these things out Tuesday and Wednesday, so I'm going to give you a twofer. This episode is going to be longer than most, and then I'm going to do another episode in a couple of days. Things have been extremely hectic. I've been doing a lot of touring. I've been doing a lot of interviews, press, podcasts. Shout out to Tariq Nasheed. I just did his podcast earlier in the week. I have not stopped moving, and it's all thanks to you. Again, Pitch, Close, Upsell, Repeat is number one in 3 countries. Give it up. Yes. Praise the Lord, because damn it, I got bills to pay, and these children are not cheap. Meanwhile, I've noticed a lot of people have been asking me certain questions. I've gotten questions on Instagram and my DMs, on Twitter and Facebook. Normally, with everything, you can kind of find me at the Business Bully. My official Twitter page is My Inner Brand. Inner Brand is a company that I own, in case you weren't aware. I get a bunch of questions from people as far as what to do, how scared they are when it comes to going out and starting their business or approaching people in order to make sales. And I automatically tell people this. Imagine you had a gun to your head, and this was your last opportunity before whoever is holding that gun is pulling the trigger. What would you say? What would you do? How would you be able to close that deal at that point? Now, I must stress to you, I do not mean lie to people. I am not one of these salespeople who believes in lying. I don't think it's necessary. I think you can have a lot more fun with the truth than you can with a lie. Not to mention, you don't have to remember the truth. The truth is always the truth. So I have a guy who says, I have some immediate goals with my sales job. The main goal is to get sponsorship. Hoping that after I read your book, then I can come to your office and we can have time. You can take me under your wing. I'm hoping to help me secure the sponsorship, blah, 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 blah. I definitely want to make sure that I do the best that I possibly can. I always think it's wonderful that people want me to take them under my wing. I have a program for that. iBrain University second semester is starting in June. So get ready right now. You can go to ibrainuniversity.com/join-us. And you can check that out. Just go to ibrainuniversity.com and follow the tabs. It's really simple to sign up. And we're doing introductory rates right now. So go check that out. But my thing is, whether you're trying to close a deal, whether you're trying to get a sponsorship, you need to be authentic. Which brings me to a point. Pardon any clicks and pops you may hear. My first radio gig, job, whatever you want to call it, was at a station called WXPN, which sits on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. I had gotten frustrated in school, and I was frustrated because the work wasn't challenging. The teachers were using me to do answer keys that they were too lazy to do themselves. And the other kids are just like, and it's not that they were dumb. It's just that I'd already gone over this stuff. My grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. So I had already been taught a lot of this stuff early on, way before I had even started like elementary school. So, I think it was about maybe, 4th or 5th grade. I had just says, you know what? I'm not doing this homework. Y'all know I know this. Why am I doing this? This is a complete waste of my time. I'm all of about 9 years old at this point. And I just stopped doing it. My mother said, hey, you got homework? Yeah, I did it. And I wouldn't do it. I just decided not to do it. So the teachers got together and they started putting these ridiculously whack grades on my report card. And my mother came up to the school. She was embarrassed, but she understood why I did what I did. But she had to teach me that even though you know the work and everybody knows that you can do it, you still have to do the work. And so she grounded me. Now, grounding a kid like me is a little bit different because I used to sit up there and take construction paper and make action figures. I'm just one of those kinds of kids. Nothing will stop me from being entertained or getting whatever my goal is. That's just how I'm wired. So, my brother, who's 7 years older than me, my brother Aaron, he's a police officer now. At the time, he was, I think, a freshman in high school because he's about 7 years ahead of me. So yeah, he's a freshman in high school. He took pity on me and snuck in a uh, a phone so that I can plug into my phone jack, and he also snuck in a radio so I could listen to the radio. I knew because I went to the library that in these days, if you turn the dial of the radio, I'm aging myself terribly right now, but if you turned your dial to the radio all the way to the left, a lot of the television stations audio was on or was broadcasted through radio signals. So I would try to, because I didn't have a concept at the time because my mom took the clock out. I mean, this was solitary confinement, so I didn't have an idea of what the time was. So I was waiting for like Who's the Boss or something like that to come on. So I was turning the dial, and I happened to land on this station that had a show about kids. It was hosted, by a woman named Kathy, and she, was talking all about kids. And she had Curly Neal from the Harlem Globetrotters on the show. And I remember when I was 3 years old, my father took my brother and I to a Globetrotters game. And so I was telling Curly Neal about this trick that I saw him do, that he hadn't done since I was 3 years old. He was like, "Man, how old are you?" I said, "I'm 10. He's like, "Wow." He said, "Y'all need to hire that kid." So the next day, my mother gets a call, and it's the producer of the show, and it's like, "Yo, we want your son to come down, blah blah blah." And my mom's like, "No, you can't have my son. My son's grounded. There's no way he could have called in." And then, so after the swelling in my ass went down, I went down there and I was working. What they did not know was because my name is David Stephen Anderson, was that I was black. So when I walked in, people were confused. They're like, can I help you? Um, yeah, my son was asked to come. He's David Anderson. And they're like, oh. Now, the only person who knew I was black was the host of the show. And my mother had asked her, because they had had conversations, hey, why didn't you tell anybody that, David was black? She said, "I just wanted to see the looks on their faces." The point of it is, it's not something that we ever felt we, had to volunteer or anything like that. It was one of those things where that's just what people thought because of the way that I spoke and the way that I carried myself. That I obviously, with that name and the way that I was speaking, because I speak the King's English, that I must have been white or other, but definitely not black. So I say all that to say, I come across this article that was in the Chicago Tribune about these business owners who are specifically gearing their businesses and the way that they market their businesses to not let anybody realize that their businesses are black owned. So that means no pictures of them, nothing that represents black people, nothing that does any of this. And the logic is because depending on who you ask, white people tend to believe that if something is black owned, then it's strictly for black people, which is ironic because 75% of all hip hop music is sold to white people. 68% of all clothing that is geared towards hip hop culture is bought by white people in this country. Um, the number one purchaser of, you know, techno gadgets geared towards hip hop or African Americans are white people. The majority of people who go to jazz festivals, white people. I mean, I could do this all day. The majority of people who buy tickets to basketball games, where there are some white people, but the majority of people who play basketball, we all know, are black, although there are no black owners, and I did say zero, unless you count Bob Johnson with the Bobcats. So that's one. Okay. But the bottom line is there's all these things that are um, black, but aren't necessarily just for black people. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think it's so much that they believe that white people won't buy because they think that it's strictly for black people. It's that the black owners themselves feel like if they cater to black people won't buy from them. See, there's a deep-rooted self-hate that black people don't like to address that really bothers me. And this is what I call the new passing. See, my grandmother, Fannie Rose, her maiden name was McPhail, so you can guess what she was. You know, from all accounts, I knew my grandmother. She died in 1993, something like that. She was born um, in 1904. She never popped a perm in her hair. She had bone straight hair. She was very fair. She wasn't the fairest woman in the world, but she was clearly fair. Um, there are people in my family who would tell me that, at the time when she was a child, she would pass, meaning she was black, but she would pass for white. And my grandmother did not, as an adult, like her roots, allegedly. So she found the darkest black man she could find, my grandfather, George, who I never met. He died 8 years before I was born. Um, but the point in all this is that's what passing was. If you watched Alex Haley's Queen with Halle Berry, it was about a black girl who was half black and half white, but she was passing for white. And the reason that they call these people tragic mulattoes is because you're too black for the white people and too white for the black people. But if you were lucky, if you're fair skinned, if your hair was just the right texture, you could kind of pass for being black. There's some people in entertainment right now who are passing as white but are not white. The guy who plays Captain Cold on The Flash, if you've ever seen it, now he's on Legends of Tomorrow, DC's Legends of Tomorrow. If you're a comic book fan, he's half black, but you could look at his hair and tell he's half black. But if you're not paying attention to him, you think he's a white dude. I worked with a guy named Tony Belzer. He passed, but all these businesses are afraid of black people not supporting them because there's this stigma about black owned businesses, and that stigma is causing a whole lot of issues. Folks tend to think, and my father, God rest his soul, would say this, that the white man's ice is colder. Now, I'm not going to say that every black owned business that I've ever dealt with was beyond reproach, because some of them were janky and absolutely fucked up. But here's my problem. And black people, I know some of you are going to say right now, well, there's a whole lot of janky black businesses, and some of their stuff just costs too much, and it's this, that, and the third, this, that, and the third. Okay, so I'm going to run down some white businesses that you continue to support with no problem. You have no problem going into a Walmart or a Target or a Best Buy, and there's 30 daggone checkout lines, right? Only 3 of them are worked by employees. You have no problem with that. You have no problem going to a Chinese food takeout place and giving them your money, and they giving you your food on a table that is behind bulletproof glass in your neighborhood. You have no problem with that. You have no problem with the fact that Jordans, which are owned by Nike, they just use Michael Jordan's name. Let's not get this twisted. Cost all of about $3 to make, but yet they're anywhere from 150 to 200, $300 for a pair of sneakers. You have no problem with that, none whatsoever. Although the Jordan brand hasn't really done anything for the black community other than put sneakers on their feet, which the black community has wasted trillions of dollars in doing. So my question to you then becomes, at what point are you going to realize that you hate yourself and you don't require anything of yourself? In Northeast Philadelphia, there is a group of businesses that I noticed, and if I'm not mistaken, they're Korean. And I see these folks, and they have the name of the business written in English and the phone number, and then they have it written in Korean or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure it's Korean because I know what Japanese looks like. Um, and they just have it. And it's a row of businesses, all of them right next to each other, and they're unapologetically Korean. And I will tell you that about 3% of Philadelphia's population is Korean. So somehow these businesses thrive not only by being unapologetically Korean, but other people go there. There's a dollar store down the street from me that has every flipping thing you could ever possibly imagine. Like, I go in there and I just test the dude just to see if he has stuff, and he always has it because he understands the importance of having things that the consumers will want and need. He also, just aside from having a dollar store with other stuff in it, if you've ever cooked, if you're a cook, and you make any kind of casseroles or pies or anything like that, those aluminum foil dishes can sometimes be expensive if you get them in the supermarket. You can get those things $6 for $1 at this man's store. Not only that, the man has luggage, in case you need to, do like a quick little weekend trip. It's quality luggage. He also has T-shirts. He has magazines. He has old school DVDs and VHS tapes if you want to get those. He also changes out watch batteries for like $3. The dude has everything. If you're thirsty, there's a cooler. There's chips. If you run out of seasoning, he's got everything. And I'm trying to tell you, the hamburger seasoning they got in this place is dope. But if I were to take the same attitude that black people take with each other as you know if I was to take the same attitude to the Korean store, I'd be missing out on the opportunity to get things without having to go all the way 2 miles away from my house, as opposed to just right down the street. We have to do better. I am all about that. And there are some businesses that do need some help and do need some accountability. And sometimes because the cost is so ridiculously high, because you're not getting government subsidies, or your wholesaler sucks donkey dick, you have to do what you have to do in order to make that overhead happen. So what needs to happen is you need to go ahead and think about those things. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'm going to be right back. So stay tuned to Business Bully Podcast.
He's one of the leading business coaches and branding experts in the US, generating millions of dollars for brands like Nutrisystem, The Ricky Smiley Morning Show, iHeartMedia, and Les Brown. He's impacted over 1 million people from the stage. Now, best-selling author David Anderson releases his latest book, Pitch, Close, Upsell, Repeat, a practical guide to sales dominance. Learn how to conquer fear of selling, how to get people to buy from you, and more. This book will motivate and inspire you to unleash the sales beast inside of you. Pitch, Close, Upsell, Repeat by David Anderson is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, or wherever fine books are sold.
Hey, what's up? It's Dave Anderson here, and I love my sponsors over at audibletrial.com/bully. Audible is amazing. It's an app where you can actually download and listen to all types of books. You can get a 30-day free trial as well as a free audiobook download right now by going to audibletrial.com/bully, and they will definitely take care of you. I absolutely love it. I have turned my wife on to Audible, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, my mom, my auntie. Anybody I coach, I always tell them, if you want to make sure that you can get as much information as possible just on business or on marketing and promotions or branding or things like that, and you're not going to ibrainuniversity.com, you need to go to audibletrial.com/bully and get yourself together, man. There's lots of stuff there. Now, let's just say your kid has a book report due and they need to read A Catcher in the Rye. Well, they got that. So you take one of your credits, you click it, boom, they got it. Here, listen to the app. Download it, boom, you got it. That way they're not sitting there, because kids will be like, I don't want to read out of these pages. Listen, you do what you got to do to get your kid through high school. I ain't going front. Yes, that's a true story. So it has multiple uses. audibletrial.com/bully. Go ahead right now. 180,000 audiobooks for you to choose from. And I'm going to go ahead back and get this show popping, all right? And we're back with the Business Bully Podcast. Right now, I want you to understand that you can do absolutely anything. You just have to be ready. And a lot of times people are not ready for the opportunity. A guy I used to work with when I was doing the Ricky Smiley Morning Show was a guy named Rock T, and he always used to say, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And so many times people think that they want to have success and they want to get great things in their life, but they're never prepared for that opportunity when it comes up. And you can't do that, because the second you say you want something, the universe is going to begin to align with that. So you got to be ready. Even with everything that's happened with me over the past few months, for some people, like, oh, it's like you came out of nowhere. Like, no, I've been working for 25 years. You just didn't know who I was. Ask anybody. I've been around. but it's hard and it's so draining. And you have to not only prepare yourself, but if you have a family, you have to prepare them, because there are going to be some days or some weekends or some weeks where you're off doing whatever it is, fulfilling your purpose. And so that comes with a certain level of readiness. And so when it comes to getting out there, you need to be able to get yourself in tune with what's happening in the media. So what I want to do is let you hear in its entirety and the conversation I had with America's youngest news columnist. His name is Ernest Owens. He is 24 years old. He is graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. He writes for about 5 different publications. He's absolutely amazing. I'm going to give you this interview raw, unfiltered, uncut. Check it out right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I would like to introduce someone who is phenomenal in my eyes. He is a writer, he is a journalist, he is a TV host, he is a media phenomenon, he's America's youngest journalist. On top of all that, he is a black man who is living in his truth. He is gay, but that has nothing to do with how phenomenal he is. It is a part of his life like anything else. The same way I wear Nikes. He doesn't walk around here with a feather boa throwing it in his face. He is that dude. He is the truth. He is my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Mr. Ernest Owens.
Hi, hello. How are you? How's everyone tonight?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Everybody's good. I got a little claps fade. Get your claps out of here. There you go. What's up, man?
Right. I mean, I'm having a great time. I'm doing a lot of missions and stuff here in Philadelphia and taking it to the national level.
Man, I mean, you write for every damn body. Like, is there room for anybody else? Like, you write for the Huffington Post. You write for G Philly, which is the it's the what would you describe it? It's a part of Philadelphia Magazine, right? But it only deals with the LGBTQ community, correct?
Correct. We're a special, unique section in the publication that's like kind of dedicated to a community of people in the city, and it's kind of got its own life of its own. The interest of people that are, kind of that have to deal with on a weekly basis. It's an entire community focused section that's driven by history, culture, arts, and everything else in between. So it's an interesting experience being the editor of that section, and taking it in my own way as a millennial and being of color. So it's been a journey.
And I mean, you're so humble, man. Like, I feel as though there's so much more to you. This man is an Ivy League graduate. He graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. He has his own television show, Earnestly Speaking. Like, what don't you do?
That's really hard. I mean, there's a lot of things I want to do, but I think, for me, I guess what I don't write about sports. I'm not really too into sports. So I guess whoever wants to write in this city, the best place to do that is do sports, because I'm not really into. I like watching sports a couple of times, but as far as reporting on it, it just that whole space is just something of its own. So anyone who loves sports, write about sports.
Knock yourself out. I'll be real with you. I love sports. I don't like to write about sports either, so I'm not totally. You're not totally by yourself with that. Let's talk a little bit about the fact that you're what, 23, 24?
24, and I'll be 25 in October.
That's unbelievable, man. You have done more than people who are my age, man. Like, it's utterly ridiculous the speed in which you grow. What do you think separates you from other millennials? Because millennials get a bad rap. They're lazy, they're jaded, they got their head in their cloud, or in some cases up their asses. What makes you so different?
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I think millennials get a bad rap, like you said, for being lazy. I don't think that our cohort, per se, is lazy. I just think that a lot of us are just two things. I think that a lot of us are misguided, mm-hmm. and I think that a lot of us are not intrinsically motivated. And one of the things that I think I've had the great support of having a great mom and a great support team of mentors and people that have done this work way beyond the years in which I was born. and also those who are beside me who have, found ways to be innovative and creative, is that, we are focused on, what we do rather than who we want to be. And it comes from a quote from President Obama, who says, that, focus on the work that you're planning to do rather than focus on the person you're trying to be. I think a lot of us millennials get so caught up in the titles and get caught up in positions and all these things that's supposed to give us this elevated sense of importance. But the real work has been, for me, is to focus on the work, focus on what I'm actually doing rather than what my title says. Because, as this city has proven itself and the rest of this country, titles are beginning to mean less when the work is not matching it. So there's a lot of people out here saying they're CEOs and, experts and consultants and all these things. But when you're looking at the receipts, as I say a lot of times, the proof of purchase, the proof of the work, it's very minimal. So I've kind of been fortunate to, defy barriers and stereotypes with the work, with showing people what I'm actually doing rather than what I'm saying. Not so quick to, want to constantly keep, putting 1,000 commas by the many things that I do. I do a lot of things in this city. I have a television show. I have a column that comes out weekly. I do a lot of community service work, activism, all these different things. But, when people ask me what I am, I say I'm a multimedia journalist. And I keep that title very, very much so, simple. But yet, when people ask me, well, how are you doing that? Then that's the work itself is going to, the proof of purchase, the receipt, as I call it, is going to show what I am and who I am. And so as long as I'm focused on having those receipts and putting in that work, the title is always going to live up to the hype.
Right. And I need to give people some background. I met Ernest probably, it's going on 2 years.
Yeah.
I had gotten somebody had sent me a link about this position where somebody needed some help with their social media. And branding is what I do. Aside from doing all this selling and bullying, I brand and I deal with social media, and I've done it for quite some time. And so this woman calls me and she says, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pay you this much and we're going to do this. And then I said, okay, cool. That sounds good to me. I'm going to go ahead and hammer this thing out. So the numbers began to just explode because I'm doing my social media thug fizzle. And she says, well, I'm gonna let you handle everything through my editor, and that editor happened to be Ernest. Now, little did Ernest and I know that this woman was full of donkey shit, but out of that, we formed a very good friendship, and nobody knows where that woman is to this day.
Nope, can't find her.
Man, yeesh.
Those experiences, I think, definitely play a role in why I go back to saying receipts matter. Having the work matters. Looking at those experiences and looking at many of the interesting, challenging learning times that I've had thus far in my career, it's really been a matter of looking at what are people's work ethic like, what are people showing, because a lot of people are always telling, a lot of people are always saying, and a lot of people can always tell you who they know and what connections they have and all this jazz. But, when it's time for the beat to drop and when it's time for people to start, putting out the actual effort and energy, you'll really see how slim the pickings become when it's time to see who your friends are and really see who's going to be there for you and also just see, who's legit or not.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, man. I mean, our friendship defies so many things as far as, the age gap, different interests, different political affiliations to a certain extent.
Yep.
I think that people need to understand that differences make a difference in how you view the world and how you move in the world, because as much as Ernest may feel he's learned things from me, I've learned a lot from him. And you can't necessarily just cut yourself off, from a group of people, be they millennials, be they young black men, be they young gay black men, and say, I don't want any parts of that based upon something that has nothing to do with you.
Right.
I think that's extremely ignorant.
Well, I tell people, and I agree with you, I think I tell people all the time is that, when you're saying you want to be a role player, you say that you want to be, internationally known, you want to be a big superstar, you want to be any of these things, you have to recognize that in this world, the world is different, and the world is diverse, the world is unique, the world is all these things. And when you're looking at the type of people that are advancing in the world and thriving in the world, those tend to be people that have a very eclectic and unique, diverse group of people behind them in all disciplines. And you'll be a fool to assume that you can have this homogenized situation where there's all the people in your group think like you, look like you, act like you, where you're from. And the people that strive to have that type of belief, this, I'm not going to change anything, everything's going to be the same from day one type of mentality for every aspect of their professional endeavors, those people are still staying where they were maybe 5, 2, even a couple of months ago, and they're not seeing the progress. And I'm constantly in spaces where, when I'm giving advice and media advice to people and brands and people who say, I want to advance, I want to do this, I'm saying, what are your hang-ups? And they say, well, I don't have any hang-ups. I'm open for anything. And then when you start introducing to certain people and putting them in certain rooms and demographics, they begin to, get stiff. And then that's when you begin to realize you're holding yourself back from opportunities based on your own ignorance, your own, warped mentality of perfection, your ego, and everything else that is not the man, not the institution, not the systemic oppression that is going to also pay in a way. And as far as being Black business owners and Black entrepreneurs and innovators, we as a marginalized group of people, we really have so many other, issues and barriers and challenges that are already present. So for someone like myself, I've been fortunate and privileged to, graduate from a great university like the University of Pennsylvania, have great mentors, have a great, family structure, have a very great relationship. But I also have to face the challenges that come outside of having all of my stuff together. So I can have all of my stuff on my ends together, but then there's challenges I have to face outside of what, society places upon me that I've had to overcome to get to where I am. But imagine being in a situation where not only do you have to face those systemic barriers and all that, but even within your own camp, your own team, you have your own hang-ups, you got your own bigotry and ignorance. You're never going to get far with that. And so I've tried to challenge people that before you start thinking outside of your city, outside of your state, outside of your country and all of that, you got to start looking in your own community and looking within your own circle, social groups and your own business strategy and figuring out what kind of obstacles you're putting in your own way before you try to face the other obstacles that you can't control.
Amen to that. Now, I want to go back just a little bit, like what it was like for you growing up. Like, did you have, I hear people say this and some people say it differently. So I'm just going to get your take on this because you were born in Chicago. You were raised in Houston, right? And I've lived in
Right.
Texas. Texas is
Right.
extremely homophobic.
Mm-hmm.
Two-part questions. At what point in your life did you realize that you were a gay man? And at what point did you say, you know what, I got to stand in this. I can't. Were you ever in the closet? Did you ever feel like you had to come out of the closet? And if so, how did that affect the way that you moved?
Well, that's a good question. So I talked about this in previous pieces a while back, and as I've gotten older and kind of advanced, I really haven't really revisited that because a lot of people just, it's just nowadays no one asks those questions, no one has those conversations because they think everyone understands and knows. I think for me, it's kind of, within myself was a experience and exploration of my own identity through time. So, I think, like anybody else, I think when I was younger, I recognized there was something different about me. But at the same time, I didn't really let other people peer into that and, run it by anybody. I kind of just explored figured myself out. And, I knew there was something, but I knew that I couldn't, I had to figure out how to navigate, disclosing that because there's things that go on, you hear at that time I was growing up, that was, there was Matthew Shepard and you hear about young children getting bullied and things, but for me, it was, figuring it out and coming to my own terms. I didn't want to be young and say I was gay and then, put that out there at the time and say that. And then, maybe, thinking, not knowing as much as I knew about myself as I did now, say that, and then people kind of, judge me and mistreat me and kind of just, say, oh, this guy's gay. You don't know you're gay. How do you know you're gay? You haven't tried things. You haven't dated, all that. So I, for myself, it was a personal self-exploration before it became a public one. And personally, it was me figuring out on my own terms who I was. I dated girls in my first half of my high school year. And I was very private about, my thoughts about my experiences. And then I realized after dating girls that it wasn't working, in all types of aspects, it wasn't really working. And I realized that I was more so, in a position where it's not, the misconception some people make, and this is ignorant, that they think that when you're gay, you don't find women attractive. I think I can find people attractive in all capacity. And I think we have to recognize that attraction and sexual attraction, all these things are different. So I can see plenty of young women. I have lots of pretty homegirls that are gorgeous. And they're my friends. I think they're beautiful. I'm attracted to them. I think they're very beautiful women. But I'm not sexually attracted to them in the same intimate level that I would be with a guy. So figuring that out and understanding what that means is one thing. Also, too, figuring out my identity, who I was, because a lot of times people will like to misgender you and tell you, well, you're gay, that automatically makes you, want to be a woman. And that's a whole different conversation and a whole different space. And so people try to, everyone around you is trying to tell you about something they're not experiencing, so you just have to experience it yourself. And so when I got to a point where I recognized who I was and what I was and was able to put properly give myself my own titles and definitions of like who I was, I didn't have to hear anyone else tell me anything because I knew myself. And so I was fortunate to be in an environment where I was in a safe space, in a safe place where I could be able to find myself out without having to feel a sense of ridicule. Now, I knew people, growing up in high school, I saw, people did always make remarks and things. But for me, it got real for me when I got to my junior year in high school. I was in this place where, academically I was doing well. At this time I was running for class president. At the time I was a valedictorian, kind of like the highest ranking kid academic in my school. I did all this great work and accomplishments. And I got to the point where I was not happy with myself because I was having self-paranoia about, resentment towards people because there was a sense of me having this mental state of like, I want to come out and tell people who I am now. I know I'm gay and I don't want to fake it. I don't want to fake who I am. And I was taking this the thing was I wasn't telling anybody who I was or telling anybody who I was as far as my sexual orientation goes, but I was still despising people because I was like, you guys won't let me do who I am. And the reality was I wasn't telling anybody. And so I just got to a point where I said, well, I'm doing all this work. I'm working hard. I'm making my school look good. I'm bringing achievements to this public school that, really didn't have this level of celebration outside of sports. Rashard Lewis went to my high school. His jersey's hung up in my high school. Beyonce went to my high school, but she didn't graduate from my high school. I went to A. Lee Elsick High School. My class was about 1,000 kids. So we were known for sports and music, but not academic achievement. None of it. We weren't known for our academics and our cultural, creativity. We're known for like sports. So here's this black kid that's doing really well academically in a school that's known for producing black athletes, but not black scholars. And I got to a point where I said, I'm doing all this great work for this school. I'm doing all this great work. I'm putting my school on the map. Everyone says I'm a leader. If me telling people who my sexual orientation is, if that is going to make them change everything they feel about me, then those are not the kind of people that I want to have in my life. And these people are not really my friends. So I did it in the sense of coming out when I was in high school to say, okay, so I'm telling you who I am, and this is my orientation. Okay, I'm gay. Let's move on. Like it was just that's kind of how I thought about it. Was that I'm going to come out so that I can have this ability to be myself because I was not able to, there was I would always be checking myself on how I said things or how I looked at things, or if I was talking to someone and someone liked me, everything was done in private. And I was like, well, I worked too damn hard to be living a life in privacy. And I'm working too damn hard for me not to be as happy as I deserve to be. So I said, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to tell people who I am. And if people can only look at that, if they're going to, all the years I done worked at this school and did all this great work, all the years I done, put this school on the map and did great work, if all these people are going to completely reject me because of something that has nothing to do with them, then that really shows me where their real heart is. So I came out when I ran for class president, and I won that election fair and square.
Mm-hmm.
And people got over it, and life moved on, and I had my graduation, and I was the senior class president and the valedictorian, and my school to this day loves me. And that's because I was able to be in a place where, I challenged people to look beyond just, what my orientation was, because my work again spoke for itself. So I was, that for me was a time where, for me, I did that because I said, it's, if you're being a good person and you're doing good work, there should be no reason why people should just stop what you're doing and focus on things about you personally. Because I don't know anybody else. There was kids in my school who had children at like 14, 15 years old.
Mm.
And that was the school I lived. There was kids who sold drugs. There was kids who was going in and out of the juvenile delinquency system. There was all types of things going on in my school that, that a lot of kids did that easily could have been judged. And yet I didn't judge those kids. And yet I didn't feel like, that student did not have the right to participate in being a part of my senior class committee or being a part of helping me with prom or helping me with things, because I just felt like, that's their life and that's their things. And if they can do the work, then that's all that matters. So I just want the same respect in return, and I got it. And I think that I'm happy I did, because I could have, the reality was I just had this natural fear of like, oh, people are going to just reject me and all this. And I got to the point where I realized like I'm standing away from me being the best person I can be.
Mm-hmm.
So I came to college. Yeah.
Man.
And I came to college being myself automatically, because I tell people being yourself and being who you are is a liberating experience. For me, I was doing all that great work, but I wasn't happy with myself because I didn't feel like I was myself in high school for a period of time. It was not until I came out my junior year that it took a level of stress and a necessary worry that I think a lot of people professionally, I noticed, that will stifle your work. It will put relationships and friendships. It will affect your mental health. It will affect your confidence. It will affect a lot of things that will make you the best person you can be. And that's why when I see a lot of kids, youth that I meet in the city, and a lot of them who dealt with coming out and not coming out, when you're looking at the high dropout rates, you're looking at a lot of kids who are involved in criminal activity, kids that are running away, kids that are inflicting themselves. The stress and the anxiety of a lot of those kids is real. And, parents especially who have kids that might be LGBTQ, I tell them, I said, well, what kind of kid do you want? Do you want a dead kid that is never going to be straight? Or do you want a kid that is himself, that at the end of the day can actually produce and yield results? And that was why I was happy with the family I was. I made my mom proud than most of the sons she has. She has 4 boys, two younger boys, and then I have a brother that's a year younger than me. And, I've made my mom proud in more ways than one. And to those parents who compare on merits alone of who I am, I think I could be a world-class favorite son to a lot of people's parents and things. So, you got to find your own value and merit within yourself and your self-validation from within before you try to seek it from other people.
Exactly.
And so for me, it was about figuring out who I was and then letting people know and then being happy with my truth, living in my truth.
I'm not mad at that, man, and I applaud you all the time for your ability to be so frank and earnest with people. No pun intended.
Right.
One thing that I share with you a lot is that people don't understand how much work goes into getting to that place where you're in a position of power or wealth or notoriety or quote unquote success.
Mm-hmm.
So
mm-hmm.
I want to talk about what you go through, not only just as a multimedia journalist, but just what happens in your inbox, what happens in your DMs, how people come at you when you're at a mixer, like really talk about it, because I think a lot of people don't understand how to conduct
Oh,
themselves when it comes to approaching the media, when it comes to promoting their business. And I wanted to have someone who is in the media, who's not been some, monolithic figure, break down in language that they can understand what they need to do and what they should never do if they plan on getting a response.
yes, yes. Well, first of all, it does go down in DMs more often than not. And it's just, I've had all types of crazy people come up to me on pictures. I mean, I've had people, the Facebook social media stalking is real, the Instagram DMs, the Twitter tagging, you saw me going to an event, so you came to that event. I had somebody spend like $75 to get into a gala event to see me there because they heard I was going to be there. And then they just really made it their way to try to have a conversation with me at an event that I was really just trying to be social and kind of relax myself. So I didn't see people spend money out their pocket to try to put themselves in a situation where they can, engage with me. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but there's a lot of things that goes on. And I don't think, and for me, I guess my process is that my day is always full of surprises. There's organized chaos, but then there's just things that just pop up. And this work, first of all, like I said, work is the key. Organization is the key. And focus is essential. You gotta have a focus. I think a lot of times you'll get distracted by opportunities and things that people are going to give to you that looks good and sounds good. But if it's not on your journey, then you got to really take a step back and look at it carefully. And sometimes it's hard, because I get a lot of different, opportunities, and I'm like, this looks good, this sounds good. But I'm like, this is not aligned with my brand and my values. So, I had a situation where, I had someone a while back pitch a reality show to me, and I'm just like, oh, wow, reality show, this be on TV, it'd be cool. And then I looked and I said, oh, snap, but I might get exploited. And I can't, I'm too young, I'm too early in my career to have myself defined by something that I have no control over and then run the risk of being exploited. So, I have to respectfully decline. And in those moments where you get opportunities or stuff just don't align with your brand. Like there's people that say, oh, I want you to be, come to our events. You could be our club, our club face VIP, club promoter face, all that. And I'm just like, well, that's cool. I do like going to nightclubs sometimes, but that's not really the kind of, what kind of journalist I'm trying to be. I'm looking at guys like Lester Holt. I'm not necessarily looking at Willie Williams. So I don't, that kind of branding doesn't match with what kind of look I'm trying to have. Mm-hmm. So everything, again, that glitters isn't gold, and everything that has money on it isn't money that you should be chasing. And you got to have some integrity in this business. You got to have some self-respect, and you got to have some, like I said before, the key element is focus. And what I say to people is that a lot of times when you're, every time you have an advancement, I have a thing where, I say another day, another sleigh. Every day in some capacity in my life, there is some achievement that can be found. There could be something good I can celebrate, whether it's celebrating that I finished my show, whether it's celebrating that my show is now, I'm trying to put my show for regional Emmy consideration, whether it's celebrating the fact that, I had a column or something published a day. I put out so much news and media in this city that I would say 5 out of 7 of the days of the week, you can go on Google and there's a new article written by Ernest Owens in some publication that is coming out on some day. About 5 days of the week. Monday through Friday, I am writing something that is going to be in some publication for some company, for some group. Somebody is reading my work mostly every day. And I don't get any break until Saturday and Sunday. And even on Saturday and Sunday, something might come out, so you never know. But I am working every day. And I'm not working. I'm doing my career. I'm living my dream every day. So I must clarify that. I'm not working. And it's not a job. It's a career. So I'm living my dream every day, and I'm doing things every day to push what I'm doing in the right direction. And so while I'm experiencing in that, there's going to always be moments where things are going to really boom. And I love that I've kind of been birthed and raised in this media platform, starting off at a young age. When I was 18, I had a radio show on my college campus called Ernestly Speaking. By 19, I had a column called The Ernest Opinion, which was my college column for the Daily Pennsylvanian. And then by the time I was 21, I started writing the Huffington Post after a phenomenal experience with Arianna Huffington that changed my life. So I've kind of been in the culture of blogs and newspapers and television and radio and all these things very early, where I've been able to see how people are, and I've been able to keep my composure and keep myself grounded through that, because a lot of things happen. And so I've been I've been very fortunate to have it on a gradual success. I don't like overnight success. I think overnight success is very troublesome, especially when you've not prepared yourself. I was very fortunate to, a lot of people want that. They first publication, they first big gig, they get an Oscar nomination, they get an Oscar award. It's like, that's crazy. I don't want that, because one, you just are never going to be fully mentally prepared for that. I can say that I've been the gradual, success that I've had throughout my life thus far from 18 to 24 and continuing has been gradual, that I've been able to humble myself and prepare myself for it and not lose my mind. And that is something that I am more grateful for, because there's some people that just pop up out of nowhere and get things. And then, it's a great moment, right? But then it's just like, they're so overwhelmed. They're not used to how people are. I've been fortunate to know how crazy people are. I've been fortunate to know how conniving and manipulating and how opportunistic people can be. I've been able to also, be able to maintain composure, some of the greatest people in the world, legends in the industry, and been able to gradually, be mature enough to be in a space where I don't lose it, because it's a lot can come at you so soon. And if you don't have a sense of ground, I've been able to keep most of the friends that I've had in college with me to this day. I still have friends from Houston that I still keep in contact with and communicate with and see, that I grew up with when I was in Houston in high school. I've been able to meet new friends, meet new associates. And, of course, I've met a couple, I guess, minor rivals along the way, but that's part of the job. And what I've been able to realize from that is that having my own safe space, having my own centered group that isn't necessarily tainted by my public persona, my money, my success and everything else, that's been able to keep me grounded and keep me, always aware of what's going on. Right. A lot of my friends will say things like, "Oh, I think you're so busy. Well, you're too busy." I'm like, I'm never too busy. First of all, people say the busy thing all the time. I don't buy into that. If there's anybody who knows what the word busy means, I can tell you that word and all the synonyms and everything else that goes with it. But in reality, I make time for what I can make time for. I make time for my friends. And it's all about just prioritizing what's important. People can always say their schedule's full, but in reality, there's always time. There's always an opportunity. And it's all about making decisions and choices. So every day is about making decisions and choices in my life that is important and what's not important, and telling people no. And that's what's important about this business. There's a lot of people out here that's going to come at you in your inbox and try to tell you, pitch you things. Let me tell you something. To all of you PR people, all of you, inspired, young, engaged, hungry, ambitious newcomers or publicists and people like that, let me tell you some stuff. Uh-oh. Do not think that you're going to look at any person's success as a launch pad for your success overnight.
Preach.
I say that again. I think a lot of people think that they see someone else's success and they think that for some way or another, it's like a sunscreen revolver or reflector that's going to automatically shine on them. And as long as they turn it plate to them, the reflector is going to make them shine. That's, at the end of the day, there is something about associations, and I get being affiliated with people that are great. I'm all about being in the winner circle. However, the winner circle is a winner circle because it's winners in the circle. So you got to be winning too. You got to be aspiring to win on your own merit, and also recognizing that nothing is going to come to you from somebody else, and that nobody's existence speak relevance to yours. You have to ground yourself and put yourself in a position where you're around, that you recognize that you're going to have to do some work on your own.
So I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, they're inspired by the work I do. And I tell people, well, if you're inspired by the work I do, then you should really be following my advice in the sense of going out there and making that stuff happen for yourself. There's nothing wrong with asking for help.
No.
But it's a difference from asking for help versus asking for a career.
Right.
I don't give careers. I give advice. I don't give, dreams. I give people hope. And I think it's important for people to understand the balance between, giving, a blueprint versus giving people the item itself. And I'm not in the business of giving people things. I think that not things that they can earn, because I think that if I did that, and I told somebody that one time, someone said to me, they said, and I tell people that by doing that to you, I'm depriving you of a learning and education for yourself.
Right.
And someone did not understand what I meant by that. But someone said to me, they said, hey, I really would like to get this position at X, Y, and Z. And I said, okay, so you just want me to just give you this because of what? Because you're black, because, you asked me because we knew each other from some place, so you just want me to just give this to you. You don't want to work for it. You don't got the time to work for it, even though I had the time to work for it. But I digress. You just want me to give this to you. And it kind of was like, well, yeah, so I could be able to then, do the work. Once you give me that, I'll get my foot. I said, try again. Because the reality was that, so you say to me that you want me to give you this position or give you this opportunity, and that once you get this opportunity, you're going to know you're going to be fine because you're going to be able to do everything on your own. Okay, so take that advice and apply it to when you're not getting this. Because in reality, how are you going to know what to do if you didn't have to work, if you didn't work for it?
Okay, exactly.
How are you going to know what's next in front of you if you didn't do the work behind you?
Mm-hmm.
And if I gave this to you, I would be giving you false hopes of what the reality is, because I would deprive you of the education, the experience, and opportunity it takes to get to where you go. I'm depriving you of all the elements it takes to be a hustler and to hustle that will make you stay. See, the reality is that people want things, but people don't want to stay. I'm all about longevity. If you ask me what the most important things to me is, it's called longevity and resilience. The ability to bounce back and the ability to stay bouncing back. Resilience and longevity are the two major elements to my goals and my success. It's been about bouncing back from bad times, bouncing back from challenging times, and longevity is being able to maintain a sense of relevance through time that will keep me able to keep fighting and pushing and breaking new barriers and doing great work. But you gotta have that. And a lot of people don't think about longevity. A lot of people are just so caught up in the now. And the now is important. I do everything in the now. But so many people are desperate to just have something without looking at its longevity through time. They're not creating sustainable models that is going to last. They're not looking at relevance. They're not taking into account work. And then the issue is, too, is the ability of resilience. Nobody wants to fall. Nobody wants to get hit with anything. And in reality, if you want something, for anything that is worth something, it takes an obstacle course to get it. That's what makes it desirable. When people say that the Ivy, the University of Pennsylvania is a great school, you know what they call it a great school? Because it's competitive as hell to get into it. There's obstacles. There's things you have to do to get there. The most desirable things that we like in life are obstacles. When people say they like crawfish, they like crawfish because they know it's so good. And you know why it's so good? Because you got to peel so much back to get into it and get the meat. But you're proud of yourself because you did all that work to get it. And that's why it's so good. They say seafood costs so much and all this costs a lot because it's so rare. Filet mignon is a lot of money because it takes a lot of work to get that kind of meat. So, when you're looking at the fruits of life and the foods of life and looking at your life goals, you recognize very quickly those things do not come from just simply waiting. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what it's about. It's like you can't just be so caught up in just not waiting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody wants to just sit up and think that they can get a perfect life without any obstacles and adversity. And that's a lie.
Today. They want it today.
They want it today.
Yeah,
And the reality is that the joke is that it's like to tell me you're inspired by the work that I do and then take out the fact that it took time to do it is an insult to my work. You really don't know what I'm doing. You really don't respect my work, and you don't really understand where I'm coming from. Because if you did, you will recognize that it's not about trying to get something now. It's about figuring out how you can last and how you can sustain.
exactly. And it's funny to me because I've been speaking publicly since 1991. I've been in radio since 1987. You know, so I've been working for a very, very, very long time, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of experience to do what I do and make it look effortless. But nobody was there when I was hungry. Nobody was there when I had to, beg this person or stand out and, out with a locked door because they didn't think I could have a key to get into a radio station while I'm grabbing other people's coffee, walking to the people's dogs, taking
Mm-hmm.
people's dry cleaning, getting them breakfast, all that old kind of humble, humiliating stuff nobody wants to do anymore. The age of the intern is dead. I had people literally get in my emails and be like, "Well, yeah, Dave, I know you're speaking of stuff. You should just let me on your tour." Like, what? Huh? What? Who are you? What? What?
Mm-hmm.
You got a YouTube, a following, a band, something? Like, this is not like American Idol or something. You just don't come in and just say I'm gonna sing a song. You get a golden ticket and
Mm-hmm.
ride off on my back. Like, this was a struggle. This is going on a 3-decade struggle. And it looks all
Mm.
well and good because you've seen the finished product, through the magic
Right.
of television. But this
Right.
is work.
Right. Truth be told, I had a situation like that with my show. So to me, anything as far as writing goes, people have been the biggest supporters of or whatever like that. People have been the biggest supporters of. When it was coming to writing, people said, "Oh, great, anything you want to write, Ernest, we got you. Anything you want to get published, we got you." So I've always had the great support of people helping me with my writing endeavors. You know what I'm saying? And with my writing endeavors. So it was always a great opportunity to be able to have people, support me on that lens. Now, when I told people I had got an opportunity to have this TV show, Honestly Speaking, my first season, I had literally that much, external support from people because people was excited. They said, great, but no one really knew what I was getting myself into, if it was going to last, and no one really had the connections or the help to really, or act like they didn't have the help to really help me to do it. And I, was like, I'm going to get this show. This show will get made. Whether it's getting made with 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, whatever it's going to take, I'm going to get this damn show made. Because I have the crew of the people that can get it done. At first I felt like I needed so much extra support with this. And I felt like I was entitled to it because I had did so much media work prior that I felt like I easily was going to call these connections and help. No one wanted to do it. No one really helped as much. Of course, you came on the show and you supported me in many different ways with that first season. But a lot of people were not necessarily at all, invested in, in seeing it happen because I don't think they really thought it was going to happen because a lot of people in Philly say they're going to do something and they really don't do it, right?
Right.
So I recognized off the jump that this was going to be a battle. So when I first got in that studio, okay, the production people that worked there at the studio that I was working with, they were very strict with me about, what I can do, how much of the space I can use. They didn't treat me like, in the sense of like, oh, this is a Philly journalist who's made some names for himself, has done some work. They kind of looked at me like, okay, this is a new guy in a new studio. He hasn't done a TV show before, so he's a newbie. So we don't care about what you're doing, what you've done otherwise. It's like I had to start from scratch with building my respect in that studio, in that space, in that production space. I had to prove myself all over again in that capacity. It was a whole new different world. It was like no one cared that I wrote for Huffington Post and, did work at Metro and some stuff that you said. No one cared about none of those headlines. it was like, you're new to this studio. This is all brand new. You don't know what, you know what you say you know what you're doing, but, whatever. You got to figure out on your own. So I was thrown in a situation where I had to plan the show on my own. And I learned how to be a producer of a show based on those experiences, because I had to coordinate the times, coordinate the studio time, get people in the crew. I had only one cameraman at that time. I only had one cameraman. I had a production manager assistant who was just a homegirl of mine that helped me, but the marketing. I had a good friend of mine who had a wonderful daughter that was willing to take pictures. And that was all I had. And the rest was just me calling people and bringing them to the production to participate in the show. And so that first season, was about getting that together. And by the time we got to the last episode, I finally got into the mojo of saying, you know what, we did this. And it came out Labor Day. It did well with viewers. And we take the second season with a full studio, with people that catered food for my production. People catered food. I had 3 camera people at a full production crew and studio, and I had an audience that was engaged and robust, and the vibe of the entire studio to the point where I ended up getting elected as a board member of that studio. But that happened within a year of me not giving up on myself. It took a year of me staying consistent on my dream to want to do this on a television platform. It was about me not allowing my ego to define my ability to be told, sit down, learn a couple of things, do this on your own. You're going to have to hustle. What's new? I had to do all of that all over again, and reinventing myself and taking my voice to a higher level to the point where now I'm a second season in, and that show, second season, is going to come out in May. The last season came out Labor Day. I've already finished 20 episodes of a brand new show in less than a year. And the production quality changed within a year simply because my attitude and my determination and my focus did not dwindle. When people tell me something can't get done, I ask them all the time, what are you doing in your own space to change the narrative? What are you doing? Because if someone like myself can walk into a studio and get really with a cameraman and a production manager and a couple of dreams and miracles and prayers, I really can't take it when I hear a lot of people around me say they've been doing something for 4, 5, 7 years and nothing has improved. You got to look at yourself as a common denominator in that. You got to look at what you could be doing better.
Amen. Amen. So what is it that, when you look, like say in the twilight of your life, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, I want to be remembered. I would like to be remembered as somebody who had, somebody who made it profitable, successful, and desirable to be your absolute self without asking for permission. That would be my goal, would be able to say that when people say things like, oh, you have to tone this down in order to get a job, or, you got to do this, you got to kiss this butt, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to compromise this in order to break it. To be able to say, well, that guy Ernest was himself, and he was able to do all these things, and he was able to maintain his self-respect and his dignity and maintain his friendships and all those things without having to compromise. And the reality is that you can be a trailblazer and you can be a leader in your own right early. The problem is that, I was too busy obsessed with trying to find, somebody that was just like me. I was like, there's got to be someone just like me in the industry right now that is doing exactly what I'm doing that I can look up to. And the reality was, in this city, I could not find somebody that was doing the kind of work that I was doing with the kind of identity that I had that I could look up to on that level. And so I said, instead of for me harping on trying to find a mentor that I don't have to find, how come I'll just surround myself and find that kind of mentorship from different people in their different aspects. Looking up to you and your ability to know how to market and hustle. Looking to people like Janice Armstrong and her ability to, kind of have a column and have that longevity that she's had. Looking at people like Bobby Booker, who's been able to find ways to reinvent herself through the times and never share a sense of age. Mm-hmm. It's those kind of people where I've realized that you don't have to find the elements of a mentor in one person. You can find them throughout different people in different aspects of your life, and that's going to make you the person you are today. And so for me, I was happy and fortunate that, I don't have that many older gay, red male, black male role models. Most of those guys are somewhere in the closet somewhere. I can't find them. And the reality is that I realized that, I don't need to have that. I think so many people are looking for mentors and inspiration that matches their age, their demographic. And you have to realize that you can take elements of people's careers and get in plays out their playbook and look at different aspects, and that will shape you as a person, and that's kind of what I had to do. To look at different aspects of people's life and careers and advice and wisdom and say, look, that's going to shape, those things can influence me. Elements of their hustle can influence mine. And rather than trying to pinpoint myself on okay, Nikki looks at Lil' Kim, or better yet, she doesn't. Who knows? Right. Britney looks at Madonna. Michael Jackson looks at James Brown. Mm-hmm. They all look at each other, and Chris Brown looks at, Bobby Brown. Right. So those are the things I think that looking at it that way, that model works for those people, but that model don't work for a straight black openly gay millennial. It doesn't. Not in this day of technology. I can't just look at one person to show me this. So I think that I'm at a place, and I think that many millennials like myself, we should be at this place in time where we're going to be the new pioneers and new trailblazers. We're going to be the new group that's going to inspire other people. And we need to figure out what our quintessential look is going to be. So for me, I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to be somebody's role model a couple years from now. It's not now. And I want them to be able to look at some of the things I did and incorporate that in their work in some kind of capacity. So I can't think, that's what forward thinking is about. I can't so much look in the past and try to find somebody to model after. I'd rather just be somebody that someone else can model after through time.
That's what it is, man. Ernest, where can people find you?
Oh, well, let's start off with the website. ErnestOwens.com, ErnestOwens.com. And I'm at Mr. MR Ernest Owens, no spaces, on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can just use Google. So that's always easy too. I promise you, if you use Google, you actually will find something. And I'm all about building, and let me disclaimer, I'm all about building wholesome, meaningful relationships. Please do not just say, add me on Twitter or add me on Instagram or Facebook and just think, oh, I know that guy. Hey, I want you to write about me. Don't do that. Just be nice. And if your work is really good and I recognize your work, you don't have to show it to me. I'm really good at discovering people's work naturally. And Dave will tell you that. I'm really good at naturally looking at what people are doing and saying, you know what? I don't know what to say about that person. It's true. And chances are the people who don't ask me to write stories about them, I'm naturally in the process of writing stories about them myself. Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, don't pitch me. Don't pitch me all the time. Don't pitch your clients more than you pitch the media. It's funny how many people can pitch the media better than they can pitch clients to get money. And then they wonder why they have no money, but they got all these stories. You got all these stories out here in the internet about how legit you are.
Pitch the media word for damn.
Ain't that crazy? People can all day get stories about them and talk about how legit they are, but don't have any money in their bank accounts. They don't have any kind of capital. They'll be like, oh, my company's been spotlighted here, there, and everywhere. And I'm like, that's great. You know how to pitch to the media. If you took that pitch into the media and pitched it to clients, you would probably be making more money and probably have more exposure. So for me, I mean, for what I do, I'm an authentic writer. That's one thing about me is that I'm a different type of writer and a different type of journalist. I've been very fortunate to have a lot of agency in what I choose to write about. I can honestly say that I'm not in a position where I get paid to write about the things that interest me and what I like. I
Amen.
really have never been forced to write about stuff that just did not interest me. And I think that that's kind of what makes my career a little bit unique from some reporters and some people out there. Some people out there, they have to write what's happening. If it's a thunderstorm, they got to go out there and write about the thunderstorm. I don't care about the thunderstorm. I'm going to keep my ass at home and stay safe. But everybody has their own jobs and everybody has their own purpose. And I got my own purpose. And so I've been very fortunate not to force myself to do something that I don't want to do.
Amen.
I tell people the real power is when you don't have to ask for permission.
Exactly. When it doesn't matter and you don't need them, they need you.
That's right.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, man, for being on the Business Bully Show, man. I definitely appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you too. This is awesome.
Yes, indeed. Ernest Owens right there. Absolutely phenomenal dude. Make sure you get familiar with him. ErnestOwens.com. You can always find him at Mr. Ernest Owens. He is an amazing, amazing, amazing guy. Now, like I said, make sure that you have everything intact. Make sure you have all of your stuff together. And make sure you're not just doing the digital business card handout thing where you're adding somebody and just saying, hey, I'm great, look at me, because that's just lame. And you don't want to do that. You want to be beneficial to your business. You don't want to be the reason that nobody wants to promote your business. So you just got a clinic as to what to do, how to pitch to the media, how to navigate those waters. And we're going to be bringing you more stuff like that. Make sure you join me next time. My guest will be Rodney Perry. We're going to talk about Monique. We're going to talk about the Oscar situation. We're going to talk about his 6 kids and how he's able to be married for over 2 decades while having 6 kids and living a life on the road in TV and in movies. All right, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And also, thank you to everyone who has been subscribing all across the world. Konnichiwa to my people in Japan. Thank you to everybody in Australia, New Zealand, Thailand who's been listening to the show. I really appreciate that. Everybody stateside here. Shout out to the UK. The UK audience is growing. Somebody needs to cut a check and bring me over there. Cheerio. That's all I got. I don't really speak English. That's not what I do. Anyway and anyhow, listen. I want to make sure everybody who is listening on an iPhone, an Apple-enabled device, goes to the Business Bully podcast, subscribes to it, and also make sure that you leave a 5-star review. No matter what you say, no matter how bad or how disparaging or how crazy it is, I'm going to read that 5-star review on the air. I will check you out next time. As you can hear, my baby wants some attention, so I'm going to go take care of her and the rest of my family. You do you, and I'll do me. I'll talk to you next time. See you then.
Follow us on Twitter at MyInnerBrand. Thanks for listening to the Business Bully Podcast. We'll talk to you next time.